everybody. Welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. So today we get to talk about the Doomsday Machine, which I am very excited about. It is the 6th episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek, the original series. I like that they actually started literally calling it the original series. Because, of course, before it was just called Star Trek, right? Till they made more. But Star Trek, the original series, an excellent, excellent television show. Very influential, very important, of course. I mean, it spawned so many other television shows, so many movies. It's been hugely successful. A very, very important science fiction franchise. So I want to start off by talking about the people that were involved with the production. Mainly the writer, Norman Spinrad. So Chris found a story by Norman Spinrad that he's going to read, and he's going to do a video about that. And it is not the same story that the Doomsday Machine is based on. It's a whole different story. He did write this story, but he couldn't get it published anywhere. I think it was called The Planet Eater. And when Gene Roddenberry asked him to pitch a sci-fi story for Star Trek, he decided, I'll just pitch him The Planet Eater and see what he thinks. And of course he loved it, and they went ahead and made the episode. It was massively successful. It's one of the best original series Star Treks. It's one of the best Star Treks, period. It's an incredible episode. It was nominated for a Hugo Award. It didn't win it, but it was nominated. That was in 1967. It aired in October of 1967. So the writer did an incredible job with the episode. The music is by a person named Saul Kaplan, and I'm going to butcher these names, I'm sorry. But he wrote the music for the entire episode. Now, I think he only did 2 episodes of Star Trek. Oh, and also Norman Spinrad only wrote 1. This is the only one he did, but it's massively successful. But the music by Saul was the entire episode, and it's great. All throughout, there's great cues. My favorite part is when the captain instills a shuttlecraft, and the bay doors are opening, and we cut to the bridge, and Sulu reports, the bay doors are opening, and Spock says, well, close them, which I thought was really funny. So he tries to close them, and he's like, it's too late. And of course, they show the little shuttle taking off. But the music there is great. It's this weird kind of floaty cue, just as that shuttle's taking off. It's really good. It's a really neat little cue. I enjoyed it a lot. I think the music really works well in this episode, and I love that Star Trek usually tries to create original music for each episode. I think that's a really neat thing. So the special guest actor in the episode is named William Wyndham, and he is incredible in the episode. And it's tough because from the moment you meet him, he has to be at 11. Like, he is so freaked out, he can't even talk. It's a hugely emotional scene, and he just nails it. It's really incredible work. If you recognize him, it's probably from Murder, She Wrote. He did a ton of episodes, like 53 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. But back at the time, he's been working since like the 50s, right? He did a bunch of Twilight Zone. He was in To Kill a Mockingbird. He did all kinds of great stuff. And he does an excellent job in this episode. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the performances in the original series, but he's just incredible in that. And the director is Mark Daniels. So I don't know anything about Mark Daniels. I know that he worked with I Love Lucy for a while before he started doing other things. And one of the neat things that they talked about for him and his cinematographer for I Love Lucy is they introduced the idea of using 3 cameras instead of just 1, which is a huge deal for the editing, right? It's really nice that you can just have the actors do the scene once, and you've got stuff from this angle, stuff from this angle, and stuff from straight on. Really, really smart idea, because then the editors can just bounce back and forth between whoever's talking, right? In general, you'd probably want to show the person that's talking, but of course you're going to want to get reaction shots and all kinds of things. And what they used to have to do is set up a conversation between two actors and put the camera behind one of them, just like this is, like there's a person standing here. And then we'd do the scene together, and then we'd turn around so that you could see the other person and do the scene again. And that can cause continuity errors, of course. But if you've got 3 cameras so that you can get all those angles at once with one pass of the scene, then you got no continuity problems at all. You can just bounce back and forth between the cameras. Excellent, excellent idea. Very important for television and film. Of course you're going to set up 4 or 5 cameras. If you're blowing something up or something, you're going to want all kinds of angles. So it's just a great idea. All right, so let's talk a tiny bit about the episode. Just a quick recap. The Enterprise receives a distress call. They go searching for the ship that sent out the distress call, and all they're finding are solar systems that have been completely destroyed. The only thing that's left is the star. All the planets are gone. And they go through 2 or 3 solar systems with all the planets gone. Finally, they find a solar system that has a couple planets left. And in that solar system, they find the ship that sent the distress call. And it is a Starfleet ship called the Constellation. And it turns out that Kirk knows the captain of the Constellation. They know each other. So Kirk puts together a small team. They beam over to the Constellation because they can't reach them over the radio. And there's nobody there. They can't find anybody, except they eventually find the captain. And the captain explains that he beamed the entire crew down to the 3rd planet in the solar system because the ship was about to be destroyed. And after he got done beaming everyone down, of course, he stayed on the ship because he's the captain and he goes down with the ship. The planet killer hit the ship again, but it didn't destroy the ship. It just wiped out the teleporter. And then it started attacking the planet. And it completely destroyed the planet and killed the entire crew. And he could not beam them back up. So he's totally freaked out. He's got survivor guilt like crazy. He's got a death wish. All he wants to do is destroy this machine. So Kirk decides to stay on the Constellation and try to get it kind of running so that they can easily tow it back. And they send the captain of the Constellation back to the Enterprise. Just then, the planet killer shows up. So the captain of the Constellation freaks out when he sees that the planet killer's back, and he assumes command of the ship. And because Kirk's not there, he can easily do that. He outranks everyone on the ship. So he takes over the Enterprise. And he decides that he's going to attack the planet killer. Now, of course, he's got a death wish. He's crazy. So he's doing things that are putting the ship and the entire crew in danger to try to kill this thing. Now, the thing poses a threat, right? They talk about how it's come from another galaxy, and it's finally made it to our galaxy, and the path that it's on is going to send it through a very densely populated area of our galaxy. So it must be destroyed. But because of what the captain of the Constellation has gone through, he's doing it in a very reckless manner that might not get the job done and is certainly endangering everyone on board the Enterprise. Kirk can't do anything about it because he is in this ship and they can't communicate at all. The communication is down. He can't see anything because the screen is down. But finally, they get the ship kind of up and going, and Kirk sees the Enterprise engaging with this planet killer and is thinking to himself, who's doing that? That's not something Spock would do. What kind of crazy person is in charge of the ship right now? What's happening? So finally, they get communication, and Kirk calls over, talks to Spock, and Spock ends up retaking command of the ship. So the captain of the Constellation steals a shuttlecraft and takes it right into the mouth of the planet killer. All the planet killer is a giant cone, right? It's basically just an ice cream cone turned sideways. It's got this huge mouth. So it floats up to a planet, it shoots this ray out, cuts up the planet, and the pieces float into its mouth, and that's how it continuously keeps itself charged. Its only goal is to maintain its power levels. And the only way that it can maintain its power levels is by eating planets. So it's this weird doomsday machine. It doesn't really have an on or off switch. It doesn't stop. It was just this weird threat, like a nuclear weapon, mutually assured destruction. The idea that if we have nukes and you have nukes, nobody will use them because we know we'll just nuke each other to death. And I don't know how sound that reasoning is. We haven't really had a nuclear war. We have used 2 nuclear weapons on populations, of course, in Japan, but there hasn't been a nuclear war, so I guess it kind of works. I'm not sure. It's a weird idea, right? So they speculate in this episode that this was created as a doomsday machine to say, stop attacking us or we'll turn this thing on. And apparently that didn't work out, so they turned it on, and then it went crazy and just wiped out both of those cultures, and now it's moving through galaxies, wiping out other cultures. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows how old it is. They don't know anything about it. It just showed up. So he flies the shuttle into the mouth of it, and it blows up inside, and they do see a slight power drain. So Kirk takes a risk. He says, I'm going to fly this ship into the mouth because this is a lot bigger than a shuttle, and I believe that it will destroy it. There's a really fun moment where Kirk says, isn't it true that this will create a 19 milliton explosion? I don't know exactly what he says, but something like that. Right? It will create a massive explosion. He says that to Spock. And Spock says, no, that's not true. And Kirk's like, oh. And Spock says, it will produce a 19.8 explosion. And Kirk's like, okay. I thought that was a really fun, neat moment for Spock. So, of course, they rig up this whole crazy system, and they fly it in, and they have a really hard time beaming Kirk out, and it's really tense, but he gets out of there just fine, and it blows up, and it kills the machine. An excellent, excellent episode. Absolutely worth seeing if you haven't seen it. So, I want to talk about a couple things that haven't aged really well, but before I go into them, I do want to kind of talk about why we do that, because we had someone ask in the comments, why do you point out things that haven't aged well in the stuff that you're looking at? The comment was really well thought out. It was a big comment. It was really extreme. I'm not sure that it quite aligned with what we're doing here, but it was a cool comment, but it's gone. I don't know if the person deleted it or if YouTube, I don't know. I don't really know how that stuff works. But the comment's not there, so we weren't able to respond to it. So I'm going to respond to it here. I can't respond to it. It was very complex. It was a lot of stuff. But I'm just going to talk about in general why we do that. The reason is because we are recommending things to a younger generation. In some cases, not in all cases, right? Many people watch this channel. But in some cases, the people are a lot younger. And if you have a 12-year-old in your life, you know how difficult it can be to get that 12-year-old to appreciate anything from the past. It's a big deal. A lot has changed. So, in order to help them understand why things are different, it's important that we point out things that haven't aged well, right? In this case, I'm going to talk about the special effects. The special effects in this episode are horrible, right? I mean, it looks terrible by today's standards. If there's a 12-year-old out there who watched Three Body Problem and adores it and thinks they want to check out the original series of Star Trek, I really hope they do. And I really hope they adore it, and I think they will, as long as they understand that they're watching something from the past and that things were different back then. I want them to know that they're going to giggle when they see the special effects because they're so bad, right? I mean, they're really, really bad. And I want to talk about why that is for just a second. So, in this specific Blu-ray release, they went ahead and they updated all of the special effects. And the new ones look pretty dang good, right? They did a really good job of updating these special effects. Now, I personally would rather watch the original effects because it's what I remember. Also, I appreciate how well they did considering the fact that they were on television, they had a tiny budget, and they were massively pressed for time. Right? TV is a crazy medium because you got to go, go, go. And if you're going to do special effects on television, that's a big deal. And of course, things have changed now with streaming and computers and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's a different world. And of course, that's why the special effects on TV shows are so much better than they used to be. A lot has changed. So, when they updated the special effects, they did not clean up the original effects. So what you've got is a really cleaned up Star Trek episode with not cleaned up special effects, unless you watch the enhanced new special effects. So it's like a double whammy. Not only are those effects really old, but they haven't been touched up in any way. If you watch this without watching the new special effects, those special effects are terrible. They're so bad because they've just been put through the ringer, you know. They're not touched up in any way at all. I wish they would have touched them up as they were touching up the episode, and then also redone them. I feel like that would have worked out a lot better. Now, of course, it's worth noting that our TVs have gotten so much better that also makes the special effects look worse. So even if they were touched up, they'd still look really bad because we're not watching them on a television built in 1952 that has been in our house for 20 years and is this big and is black and white. You know what I mean? The way some people probably watched these original episodes. And if that's the way we were watching it, the special effects would have looked great because everything looked terrible, right? But now that everything is so much better for televisions, it's really hard on the special effects. This even affects the next generation, right? People started seeing things in the background and on the floor that you really couldn't see in the 80s when you were watching the show. But now, with everything going to more high definition, and these things start to pop out, you know. So, they touch them up on this. So, if you buy a newer version of the original series on Blu-ray, you will have the ability to watch the new special effects. And if you've never seen the episode, I strongly recommend that you watch the new special effects. Also, if you stream it on Paramount Plus, I believe you'll be able to see the new special effects. So you should be just fine if that's the way you're going to watch them. Okay? But if you sit down with your mom or your dad and they want to show you a Star Trek episode and they pull out a VHS tape, okay, please know that the special effects are not as good as they are today. just ignore it. Just enjoy it. You can giggle at it. It's fine. But try to take in what the episode itself is doing, because it's really, really good. It's very, very well done. And the second thing I want to talk about that has aged, I don't want to say it hasn't aged well, but it's slightly changed, is the acting. The acting back in the 60s, and if you go further back, it just increases, of course. But back in the 60s, the acting was a little more over the top than it is today. Today, our actors don't generally go between the stage and the camera. We either have film actors or we have stage actors, unfortunately, right? Even though most stage actors would like to be film actors, that's just not the way it works. It's very separate. But that wasn't the case in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s even. Theater used to be a very big deal in America. Not so much anymore, but it used to be huge. And a lot of actors would come from the stage and do television productions. Oftentimes they'd start in things like Masterpiece Theater or some kind of a television show that would literally film plays so that you could watch the play on your TV. So these actors would come from the stage, do stage productions on TV, and then slowly start appearing in TV shows. So they're used to performing for people that are very far away. And our society is used to seeing over-the-top, what we would call today, over-the-top performances. And this episode is so dramatic. And this actor does such an incredible job of handling the intense situation that captain went through. But it looks extreme. When you watch it, there's a part as he's flying the space shuttle into the mouth of the planet killer. It's all on him to show how afraid he is of dying and how intense it is to fly inside that machine. And he does some really extreme kind of panic stuff while being stuck in his chair, right? Because the shot's basically like this. It's kind of a close-up on him. So he can't move very much, right? He can't do this, right? Because that doesn't do any good. So he's stuck here, but he's doing, like flying into the thing and about to die, and it's extreme. It's not the choice that a modern day filmmaker would make. So just be aware, things have changed, right? The past was different. There are amazing things from the past that you absolutely should check out if you haven't. And you should know that you're watching something from the past so that you can enjoy the stuff that matters and not worry too much about the stuff that doesn't matter. I showed a bunch of friends. I went back to school at an older age. So I was a non-traditional student. And I had some friends who were traditional students, younger people. And I showed them Close Encounters. And we only got about 15 minutes in, and they wanted to turn it off. And we did. I'm not like, you have to watch this. But they just weren't in the mood to watch some old, weird movie, which was really sad because that's an incredible film. And if they win, they're in a better position to take it with the grain of salt that they need to take it with because it's old. They will see some really wonderful stuff, of course, because it's a great film, period. All right, so that's why we bring up things that haven't aged well. So this episode is easily a 10 out of a 10. And the reason that that's true is because, of course, it has a lot of heart. It's got some great philosophy about doomsday machines and all that kind of stuff. It's got the neat science stuff, about going from one galaxy to another galaxy and things like that. But most importantly, it has the awe factor, right? Which we've always had a hard time describing. But this weird mystery about the universe. Where did this thing come from? Who made it? Why did they make it? I mean, big questions that we can think about forever. There's no answer to that. I know that there's some fan answers, right? But for the show itself, nobody ever knows. It's just this weird thing that wandered in. And I love that. That is the most important part about science fiction in my mind, is the ability to make somebody go, wow, I never thought of that. That's so weird. What does that mean? Basically to blow people's minds. That's the point, I believe, of these stories. And I believe this episode absolutely has that. And I think it's something that Strange New Worlds, unfortunately, lacks. Now, I love Strange New Worlds, of course. I think they're doing a great job with it. But I really believe that they need to up their game in this aspect. Because even Next Generation had it, right? Next Generation had a lot of, I don't want to say internal conflict, because that's not the best way to describe it. But the people on the ship and their lives were very important to the show. We wanted to know about Data's cat. And we wanted to know about Worf's kid, These were parts of the show that were important, but we did not lose the wonder of exploring space. Exploration was still a major, major theme. And I feel like that is not as major in Strange New Worlds. And it's literally called Strange New Worlds. And they do go to different planets. I'd love to say, what we need from Strange New Worlds is more Strange New Worlds. Right? But they do that. They do go to different planets. But the problem is they're not completely new to us. It's weird that they're fighting the Gorn, that everybody knows what the Gorn are. And even their update of the Gorn, they just made it alien. Everybody knows what alien is. Like, there is no mystery or wonder at all with those subjects. They are well-covered subjects. Or they go back in time on planet Earth, or they might go to a new planet, right? There's a few, but overall, I feel like they need to really work on the mystery of it. And I feel like the reason the original series was more successful with that was because they would reach out to science fiction writers. And I think that they should do that for Strange New Worlds. It would be crazy if the guy who wrote 3 Body Problem pitched 3 episodes to the Star Trek people. That'd be incredible. That absolutely should happen, right? The guy who wrote Arrival should pitch some stuff. The guy who wrote Annihilation should pitch some stuff, right? Like, there's crazy cool sci-fi writers out there that could pitch some things to Star Trek. And they still need to look like Star Trek, right? We don't want Annihilation, the Star Trek episode, right? We want that person to understand this is what Star Trek is. Please pitch us an episode of something new, but keeping within the bounds of Star Trek. They'd come up with some great things, right? They could even write them, perhaps. They may want to just buy the ideas and have their scriptwriters write them, but they need to get that truly sci-fi angle that I don't think they have right now. But hopefully season 3, they'll be able to branch out a little bit and explore some truly strange new worlds. So that is the planet killer, the Doomsday Machine, from Star Trek the Original Series. Star Trek the Original Series is only 3 seasons, So this is season 2. I would recommend that you pick up this one because you have both options. You can watch the original effects and the new effects, but you can get it just like this, right? And it doesn't have the original effects, it just has the new effects. All 3 seasons are in one box, so you could get it this way if that's more important to you than having those original effects. However, these were done on film, which means the possibility of getting a 4K release of the original series is very high. In fact, as I pointed out in one of the Strange New World episode reviews, they've already done a 4K episode from the original series. So they've already worked on that, and that suggests to me that they're probably almost finished by now. I believe we'll be seeing a 4K box set of the original series sometime in the near future. I would not be surprised at all. Now, the later series, they probably can't do that with because they weren't filmed on actual film. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more like this, subscribe. We have a ton, and there's a ton more coming. And thank you so much for watching.